we don't want to end up in that moment like my dad, being like, I really wish I wouldn't have tolerated all these things, or I wish I wouldn't have put my dream of X, Y, or Z like to the side because I wasn't being honest about how much I wanted it.
Welcome to Mirror Talk Soulful Conversations. If this is your first time here, we're so glad you found us. And to our returning listeners, welcome back. We've missed you. Take a moment to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the inspiration, wisdom, and heartwarming stories we share every week. Let's grow together, one soulful conversation at a time.
In this episode, we'll learn how to live courageously on our terms. Helping us with this topic is an entrepreneur, author, transformational coach, podcast host, and radical truth seeker. Welcome to the show, Marni. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to be here. I love it.
I'm so glad to have you finally on the show, and I'm looking forward to learning so much from you. I know we're recording right now in 2024, and your new book is coming 2025, and I'm already looking forward to seeing it already. So,
Yay. Thank you. Me too. It takes so long to get a book published. So I sold this book in 2022.
wow.
So it's like being pregnant for like 2.5 years, which is a long time.
How was the writing process like for you? I mean, and the waiting process also, like 2022, this is 2024, it's coming out next year, 2025, and by the time people are listening to this, maybe it's out already. How is that like for you, like to give birth to a book? And
Oh my gosh. Well, so it's really fun to take an idea, and I remember sitting down with a mentor telling this person, like, this is the story I want to tell. Like, how can I tell this in an interesting way? And brainstorming. And then this idea came up because I had already sold my house and I was going to be living in an RV for a year. And I wanted to tell the story of how that all happened and how it can inspire other people to live life on their own terms. And we came up with this idea of like, let's plan stops on the itinerary of our trip around America to have opportunities to use metaphors, that will teach these concepts. And so I was like, this is so fun. So I was like online, I was like sitting with my husband, like, where are we going to go? And I would like find really cool things, places to go. And so you have a plan. But then when you get into the writing, you don't realize it was like divine because every place that I stopped, I thought the metaphor would be whatever and that I would say this. But when I really got into it and I started writing, like my actual transformation opened and happened like almost on the page.
wow.
So it was like therapy. It was like book therapy, really, writing it. I just learned so much about myself from the writing. And that was so unexpected.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I believe that, when you're writing a book or when you're putting words on paper, they mirror themselves back to you and you see yourself in different light, or you see yourself in a better way than you've ever thought you could see yourself, or you understand even more things about yourself because those words just gain some life or some life energy from, and then they reflect back to you in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, they reflected back. And then also like the ending of the book, I didn't know that would be the ending.
Oh.
So that I already had an ending and I was doing the third version for third final, draft. And I'm not going to give it away, but like I was thinking about it and I was talking to my editor and he's like, I mean, that's your new ending. And I was like, oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Part of me was like, oh my God, I have to write something new. This is supposed to be the third draft. Easy peasy, cut and paste. But it wasn't. Every draft was like literally like the next version. It wasn't just like ever, change that word or get rid of that, exclamation point. It was every draft just got me closer and closer to the truth of who I really am and the story I wanted to tell.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And that's why I would also like to speak with you, because I know your book helps people to, go on this radical life experience challenge, and it gives help people to go on this journey of, finding the meaning to their lives. And I was like, oh, I would like to learn from Marni herself, from the author herself, like, what's your definition of a meaningful life? I'd like to get your picture on that. And also,
Oh.
at what point in your life did you find out the meaning to life or to the meaning in your life?
Mm. Well, I think that for most people, myself included, especially, well, I think men have this too, but it's like, you believe that you're going to create these certain achievements and that they're going to make you happy. Like, even you were sharing with me, right?
Mm,
Like, you're in Nigeria, you're gonna go to Europe, you're gonna go get your you're gonna get your and you do these things and they're supposed to like make you
yeah.
happy, right? You're supposed to be fulfilled. Um and I think that it happens in different parts of our life, but like we work really hard to achieve things that we think if we have more of that, then that will be us happy, make us happy.
Mm,
More money, more space in our house, bigger, more nicer car, like everything. We think more equals happy.
mm.
Um, and that's not true. I think we all have been sold the lie. Right. And because look at anyone who's like, a billionaire. Lots of unhappy
Yeah.
billionaires, right? With lots of cars and houses and clothes and jewelry and all those things. And so for me, my dad, I loved my dad so much, and he got sick, and then in 2019, he I would say like he didn't mean to die that weekend because he had cancer and he was sick, but he was doing pretty well. But something happened and he ended up in the hospital for the weekend. And my dad had a very good sense of humor. So he thought about checking into the hospital as like a staycation. He'd be like, I'm gonna go. I'll chill. They'll bring me food. I'll be out by Monday. I'm good,
Yeah.
like a tune up.
Mm,
Um, but something went wrong and he wasn't getting better. And I was in the hospital room with him and he didn't know this was going to be the last day of his life, but he was mumbling kind of half conscious about credit cards and
mm.
bills. And, he tried so many times, Toby, to, like, get in his phone and send emails for work, that
Yeah.
he actually, like how if you tried the password wrong so many times, you get locked out of your phone?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
he did it so many times, he got locked out of his phone,
Ooh.
and he was like, "I need my computer." It was crazy. So, I was so sad and I was so upset and grieving, but there was this part of me that was going like, "Is this all there is to life?"
Mm,
Like, at the end, that's what you're thinking about, your credit card
mm,
bills, like, sending that last email, like, it really, really hit me, and so, he died, and then I went about my life, but a few months later, I was sitting listening to, a member of the clergy, give a sermon, and this story is in the Old Testament, and it's this story of like, you go to the pearly gates of heaven,
mm.
and you're asked these 7 questions
Ah,
that are, did you live a meaningful life?
yeah.
I was so upset about my dad, and I started to think, according to this, did my dad lead a meaningful life? These
Mm,
questions, and then I thought, am I?
mm,
And it got me thinking. And then literally a couple months later, I got in a really bad traumatic ski accident, almost couldn't walk, got taken down the
oh,
mountain in a sled.
mm,
Um, they thought I would just heal. It wasn't going well. I couldn't, I was in so much pain. I couldn't even like sit up and do work. I could barely watch TV. Like I had a claw like old people have, to reach
yeah.
that like plastic thing because I
Yes.
couldn't reach. It hurt too much.
Oh,
And so I just had this claw and it hit me. Like that was the final. That was like the trifecta. I was like, if I can't work, if I can't exercise, if I can't write, if I can't do anything, who am
mm,
I? My whole life was built on doing and achieving and trying to do those things that I thought were going to make me happy.
yeah.
And it's at that point that I got this message that I had to break that my sacrum, which is like the foundation of our physical self. I had to break this foundation so that I could rebuild it and start living a life according to these 7 questions. And you know what's crazy is I had 7 cracks in my sacrum And I was
Ooh,
like,
okay.
there are 7 questions for a meaningful life. I need to pivot.
Yeah.
And that was when I just started completely really looking at my life using these questions as the lens and deciding like, how do I really want to live the rest of my life?
Yeah. Well, I'm so curious. Thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I'm so curious to learn about these 7 questions. Like, can you walk us through them? Like, can you help us understand the seven
Eh,
questions?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's 7. So I will tell you the list as best I can, but I think we could deep dive on 1 or 2 of
Yeah.
them because otherwise it gets so I've done so many of these interviews and then you're like, okay, like so so the questions, well, so here's what's interesting about the questions, first of all. So I universalize them, right?
Mm,
Because they were created in ancient
mm,
texts. And so I wanted to make sure that they were applicable for all people of all beliefs, right? And also, like, how do we make those old teachings have relevance in our society today,
mm,
right?
mm,
So in the ancient texts, the first question was, were you honest with money? So I looked at that question and I was like very curious about it. So I was like, well, why? So you're at the pearly gates. The first question they ask you is like, were you honest with money? Like, what? That doesn't sound, I don't get it.
yeah.
So the thinking behind it was that if you were honest with money, then you would be because everyone wants more and we think there's not enough, right? So
True.
we're very hold it tight.
Mhm.
So people were like, well, if you're honest about money, then you're probably going to be honest in other areas of your life. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, but what I really started to think about is that we all know the rules of honesty, most people, right? And people are listening to this show. We're not telling big fat lies. Hopefully, we're not cheating, right?
Mm,
But the thing is, I think that people get so focused on doing the right thing, right? But the thing that's missing is we're not honest with ourselves. So the first question really focuses on, were you honest with yourselves?
mm,
Were you honest and able to be able to take on challenges and continue to ask yourself these hard questions so that you live this meaningful life where there's no regret, right? Because we don't want to end up in that moment like my dad, being like, you know, I really wish I wouldn't have tolerated all these things, or I wish I wouldn't have put my dream of X, Y, or Z like to the side because I wasn't being honest about how much I wanted it.
mm.
And I think for so many people, they think about their dreams or their desires or their longings, and they believe like, my life is good. Like, I don't want to upset that, or I don't deserve that, or I can't make effort for that now because it will mean other people won't get all of me in certain ways.
Yeah.
And so, really being honest with yourself is such an important piece of this
Mm.
process. Um, I always say to people, are you more committed to your bullshit? Or are you more committed to your vision? Because a lot of people will argue for their limitations and why they can't and why they should settle and not deal with the stuff that's really hard.
Yeah, that's very difficult. I believe because, like you said, if we're not honest with ourselves or, with money, then we make wrong decisions in life also, basically, because yeah, maybe we're chasing more money and we are thinking like you talked about earlier. you know we think when we get the bigger thing, the next big thing, then we'll be happier, we'll be happy, and then we get it and then we are not happy and then we keep on chasing the next
We
big
just
thing.
want more.
Yeah, yeah.
We just want more, right?
Mm,
Like it's so crazy. And I was telling you when I went to
mm,
Africa, and I went to Uganda and I went there for 5 years with my daughter, and, I took some groups there, and, when I think back about, like, what makes a meaningful life, like, I saw people that didn't have a lot, but they had a lot of
mm,
joy, right? And I was sort of, like, really always curious and talking to the people that I met, like, what brings you joy? What makes you happy? And there's just, like, so much gratitude, right?
mm,
And so I think that in our Western culture, we have this belief that, the acquisition of stuff will make us happy or feel like our life is meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think that in some respects, we're not willing to really look at what will make us
Mm.
happy, right? Because that just seems like the easy, accepted way. And when I say easy, I know it's really not easy to just climb the corporate ladder or like try to, get more money or more things, but easy by saying, like, and I know this in my own story, like, there were a lot of things that I didn't want to admit or I didn't want to deal with, that were going on in my business or even in my relationship or whatever it was, right? That I was just afraid to
Mm.
change. I wasn't being honest with myself. I just was focusing on work because work is an easy place to get lost,
Mm.
right? You just do the next thing, you go for the accolades, you go for the promotion, like so many people are workaholics for that reason. And so
Mm.
that honesty, like for everyone who's listening, think about for you in your life. It might not be around work. It might be in relationship. It might be with something with your parents or something with a group you're in or friendship. Like, are you really being honest with yourself? Because if you're
Yeah.
not, then I don't want you to have like regret at the end of your life.
Oh, I mean, that's very deep. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we, of course, like you said already, sometimes we chase some of these achievements because we are running away from other issues of our lives. And we, we're not honest enough with ourselves to sit down and say, okay, what am I actually running away from? And how can I
Yes.
face it? How can I face it heads on and get meaning out of my life instead? Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like here's another example of this. Like it's so easy to blame other people, right? And
Mm.
everyone else is wrong, right?
Mm.
And there's that basic concept, like it's basic to me, but hard to do. Like, why do I constantly get triggered by this person?
Mm.
Um, why do I constantly get in arguments with this person, right? We could just blame the circumstances, the people,
Mm.
our boss, whatever. And again, it's like, okay, that old saying, like, if you're pointing the finger, there's three fingers pointing back at you,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Right? There's three. And it's like, okay, be honest, right? Like, what? So stop blaming because, you can only go so far with that.
Mm.
And then really look at, like, okay, I need to be honest with myself. So this question about were you honest with yourself is if there's so many pieces to it,
Mm.
and there's so many ways that you can get active and engaged with that question.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know any of the other seven and you just focus for like 30 days on a self honesty, your whole life would probably
Yeah,
shift.
I believe that. I'm going to hold on to that, like working on that one question. And I encourage every reader out there. I mean, if you listen to this in 2025, get the book already and get to know the other six questions and work on this one also. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sometimes Toby would be like, what are the seven questions? I'm like, I could talk for like 3 hours on every question.
Yeah.
Because they're all so deep. So we could talk about more, but you just let me know.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to hold on to honesty and self-honesty and use that as a pivot to learn how I could be honest with myself and then also live a radical life. Like how can I be honest with myself and ensure that I'm able to lead a meaningful radical life?
Yeah. And the other thing that I would say, like, we're talking here about soulful conversations, right?
Mm.
Like, this is really important. Why we need to listen. And that is one of the questions. Did you create time for
Mm.
stillness? Because some people will ask me, and I'm sure they ask you, like, how do I know if I'm being honest with myself? Am I just making up a story to like get out of something?
Mm.
Or am I just telling myself I don't care? Do I really not care? Sometimes it's hard, in the inner workings of our mind. And so I believe that like we have a felt sense, like soul driven felt sense of what I call resonance. Like, this feels like the truth, you know?
Mm.
And that we can start to learn to get quiet and listen to that. Because once we do, then we can kind of start to know, like, I think I'm bullshitting myself here. Or even in really mundane things in your life about like, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Or should I go spend my Saturday doing this with friends and then running to another thing? Or do I need to just chill? right? And that's like a basic thing we do like every weekend, right?
True.
And so many people get on autopilot and they are like, oh, I have to go do this and I have to go do that. And I don't want them to make them mad. And I want this person to like me. And oh, they came to mine show. I should go do.
Mm,
And we have all these shoulds like floating around in our head. And so when you're still enough to start to recognize like what feels really resonant for me,
mm,
and we're not reacting and we can make conscious choices. Our soul is there, like literally,
mm.
like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain or the woman behind the curtain,
Yes.
being like, honestly, it's just here. Like, this is like,
Mm,
just listen. Um, and that there's so much wisdom, right, inside of us about what is really the right thing or the honest thing to do. So the questions are really connected.
yeah, that's true. But is that the same thing like also connecting with our intuition or being aligned with our intuition? Or is it different?
Yeah, I mean, intuition is to me the soul message.
Ah,
It's that knowing.
yeah.
Um, and I love that you brought that up because I used to call intuition knowing,
Mm,
like our knowing.
mm-hmm.
And I was teaching that and I was talking about it. And I had this intuitive hit and I was like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of us know, but we don't really listen.
Mm, true.
And then we don't act.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you look at someone who maybe got married and then got
Mm,
divorced, and you'd be like, "Did you know? Were there any flags before? And how many people do you know?" Were like, "Well, I kind of had, but I just I just did it, right?" Or even an intuition about which road to take,
mhm.
and there's traffic or there's not, like had that, I thought I should bring an umbrella, but I just, whatever.
Yeah.
So intuition is another thing it's that soul message, but like not just knowing it, but then actually starting to practice responding and listening to it. So you can start to create that self trust.
Mm. Oh, that's true. I mean, you mentioned something that is very, very valid, and that's about listening, actually listening and acting on whatever you gain. Like that's basically how we get wisdom, right? Because this world is filled with a lot of knowledge. We're speaking right now, and I'm gaining a lot of knowledge from you. But if I don't act on everything that you speak on, then it's like a waste to me. I don't get wiser, or I don't get any wisdom out of it. Basically, yeah.
And that's another question. Did you listen to your wisdom?
That's true.
Did you seek wisdom? Because most people spend time seeking knowledge
Mm, yeah, and that could,
all day long.
yeah.
I mean, we love the people that listen to your podcast and my podcast, right?
Mhm.
And the people that buy the book, we love that, right? Um, we want knowledge, right? But the truth is that when we don't listen to that inner wisdom or we don't ask those questions, we're missing out on so much because most people are looking for the strategy and the how.
True. Yeah.
Right? They're like, "Give me the information,"
Mhm.
right? Like, "Oh, are these 7 questions? Okay, if I have those 7 questions, then my life will be different.
Yeah.
I'll know them."
Mm,
Um, and even when you think about, like, questions that you ask, like, "Why did my mother say that to me?"
mm,
Or, "Why do you think my husband keeps forgetting to take out the trash?" Or, "What?" Right? Okay, there are all these questions that we ask, and most of them, we literally will never find out the answer.
true. Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time, what does it mean when this? And so I say, like, yes, knowledge is great. Also, though, develop the muscle of wisdom and say, like, instead of like, why do I get so irritated by my husband not taking out the trash? It's like, what is it in me that needs to be expressed so that this trash issue actually can create more connection?
Mm,
That's a really deep wisdom seeking question. And I'm a ninja at taking a question and flipping it to make it introspective.
yeah.
But if you do those flips, and you start making it in a targeted way, then you know so much more than you think you know.
Mm,
And we have to start opening the portal and walking into our wisdom because we're wise.
that's true. Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom deep within us. We just have to listen. Yeah.
Yes, totally.
And do you think that if I keep on opening these portals, if I keep on listening to myself, listening deep down, will I tap into my higher self, into my essential self.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm,
For sure. I think that our essential self, the essence of who we are, is there, sending messages all the
mm.
time, like, hello, listen. It's really funny because when I sold my house, I lived in this house in LA for like 25 years. I raised 3 kids there. I was married to one guy, got a divorce, lived with my husband for like 10 years, my second husband. I had a lot of stuff, right? And we were gonna live in an RV for a year. We figured that out. And so I really had to ask this question: what is essential?
Mhm,
What is the
mhm,
essence of me that I need to bring with me? And it was interesting, right? Because that idea of what is the essence of ourselves and what we need, it just really got me thinking like how crazy this is because I was looking at like a drawer full of
mhm.
silverware, you know.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
many do you live
Yes,
alone?
I live alone here.
Okay, how many, this is a crazy
Yeah.
question. How many, like, forks, knives, spoons do you think you have?
Oh, I can't count. Maybe 20 or something.
20. Okay, I love that, right? Okay. So, and, I look at people, I look at people, and I'm like, we got a lot of silverware.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was getting ready to go in the RV, and I opened my thing, and I was like, "Wow, I literally have, like, 20 of each thing."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What am I gonna bring on this RV trip?
Mm,
What is the essence? What is
mm,
essential, right?
mm,
Like a really, really like, what do I really need? What is the root to serve the purpose of eating, right? Without
mhm.
my
Yeah.
hand, what do I really need? And so I started looking at everything in my life like that. And then I was like, so then what is the essence of me? What really is
Mm,
essential of who I am, of what I need versus what I want?
mhm,
Things I was doing in my business because other people did it that way? Was I creating systems that I just had been doing for years and years without even thinking, like, is there a better way to do it?
mm.
Is there a more efficient way to do it? And so when we start to think about what is the essence of me, we're like, this is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Really, right? And when we can identify that, one of the things I teach in the book is how to define the essence of who you are, your essential self, through this process called soul mapping. About what you love, the conditions, and how you do those things that where you really thrive. What are your core motivations
Mm,
that are really your deepest values? Like, and so in the end, the essence of me, the essence of you is like the essence of that silverware drawer.
mm.
Um, 4 forks, 4 knives, 4 spoons for 2 people.
Yeah, that's essentially what you need, right? That's what you need. Yeah.
That's what you need. I mean, I can tell you so many examples where I was just like, what's really fun though, Toby, is so I left my house in 2021
Mm,
and I lived in the RV and then I lived in a bunch of other different places. And I have one box and it says kitchen.
mm,
So I got like a little mini blender and my favorite knife for chef knife and
yeah.
whatever. And every time I live somewhere and I unpack, I think, damn, I really did get clear on what are the essentials
Mm,
because it's really a reflection of me even in how I cook, how I operate in the kitchen. And so what I want everyone to hear is like there's the essential self in all of us that can simplify in all these different areas of our lives so that everything that we touch, everything that we do is just really a reflection of us at the core. And when you do that, life is just like kind of magical. Like I literally get excited every time I use that one knife.
yeah. I really love that. And I'm going to work with this also for myself personally. Because like what you just shared right now is giving me a reflection of my own life. Like there are a lot of things that we gather with the, saying, oh, like we talked about earlier, like once I have more of this, I'll be happier. Once I have more of this, I'll be happier. But you just need one of it. You just need one knife, one fork, one spoon, and then you're fine.
Right, right. Right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And but like we believe like more is better
Mm,
because the thing is, and this is very much I think in our culture, is that if you think of your identity as like a shopping cart,
mm,
right? Like you're going to do they have Costco in Europe? I think they
Yeah, they
do,
do in some
right?
parts. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Costco, it's like, got everything.
Mm,
And so I think we go through life within the Costco of life, and we think like, if I have this and I pull this off the shelf, that's who I am. And in Costco, the whole belief is more is better,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so we want bigger, we want two, we want a case, right?
Yes.
Um, and so the thing is that we have attached our identity to where that if we don't have
Mm,
more, then we think we're less than,
mm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we're making our whole identity based on this idea that everything that we have is a reflection of us. And what's interesting is it's only based on the ability to compare to other people.
Mm,
So I always put this little exercise out there. Imagine, Toby, you are on an island of one and you don't know anyone else
mm.
exists. There's no experience of what more is.
Yes, true.
There is no such thing as more, right?
Mm,
So you look exactly right. You eating utensils are exactly right.
mm-hmm.
The weather, you have nothing to compare it. Like literally, right? Like,
True.
and so I want all of our listeners to be like, to be the blank slate. It's not that having a nice car is bad. It's that I want everyone to choose it and to understand that they are not the nice
Mm,
car. The car is something that you have, but it doesn't reflect your worthiness,
true.
right?
Yes.
So really refocusing on choosing what you put in that shopping cart with the understanding that our goal in life isn't to get more to try and make ourselves feel better about ourselves, but rather to really know who we are, to live by these set of questions and ideals that will fill us up, that will make us have more joy, and to start questioning the things and beliefs that we have about everything in our life. Because to me, that's living radically, is to
Mm,
not just get in the fast lane and follow the cars ahead of us,
mhm.
but rather to like get to a new timeline where you have an identity that's based on who you really are and start fulfilling the things that are an expression of that on your own terms.
Yeah, that's the main goal. Yeah. Living the radical life. I mean, focusing on what brings you happiness, true joy, true fulfillment, and being honest with yourself. Like, I'm not getting that fancy car because my neighbor has a better one, but because, I- it's just part of what I want for myself. For myself, like, if I'm the only one living on an island, I'm repeating what you just said already. If I'm the only one
Yeah,
living on an
right.
island, I am. Will I be satisfied with everything I have with me without comparing with any other person around? Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I just have to say this
Mm,
because I don't want people to be like, but I like my nice car.
mm,
Here's the thing, I want everyone to choose the nice car, not because their neighbor has it, but, and I've walked clients through this because I value comfort.
mm,
I value convenience.
mm,
I value fuel economy, whatever it is,
mhm.
right? Because I actually feel like I thrive in that sort of experience, not because the label is going to say or the brand is going to say that I've made it.
Mm,
And so I want to be really clear on that. Like, just whatever it is that you're choosing, understand that you can choose it because it's actually the place where you're in flow.
yes, exactly. Your flow state should match what you
Flow
like.
state.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow, Amani, I've learned so much from you from this conversation already.
Thank you. It
I
was so fun.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, for me, and so educative. And I'm sure there are people out there, listeners out there, who still have more questions to ask. Maybe also want to get, connected with you and follow up with your book if they read your book already, and also want to, stay in touch. What's the best way to work with you? What's the best way to work to connect with you?
Well, so I have this quiz. Everyone loves a quiz,
Yeah.
right? So I put this quiz together. It's decodeyourdestinyquiz.com.
Mm,
And I've asked you some questions that are aligned with the 7 questions, right? To see what personality archetype you are, listener, right? Are you going to follow your dream or are you not? And what you need to shift in terms of those questions to start actually living a meaningful life. So you'll know what your archetype is and what you need to sort of shift and focus on so that you can actually start to live life on your terms without blowing up the life you have.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to place a link in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone to click on it and just, answer those questions to the quiz and get
Take the quiz.
Take the quiz, exactly. And once your book is out, the information also be on your website. The link to your website will be
Yes,
in the show notes of the episode.
marnibattista.com, which sounds simple, but I know there's a million ways to spell Batista, but mine is Battista. marnibattista.com. You can get the quiz, you can get the book, so many resources on there.
Yes, the link will be in the show notes of the episode. I encourage you to click on it right now, copy the link, and get your book already. Take the quiz, and live your radical life. Yeah, with true honesty.
Woohoo! I love it. Thank you, Toby. This was so fun.
Same here. I enjoyed really speaking with you. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye.